What's up, everybody? Just gonna wait to get this all set up real quick. It has been a hell of a regular season and playoffs. Well, I hope y'all are having a good Sunday. It has been a pretty decent Sunday for myself and fam. Obviously, we have had a lot of football played up to this point. Definitely some great games. Want to make sure to give a shout out to everyone that participated in these playoffs. It has been for the majority, a competitive playoffs throughout. The average win difference has, if you go by average, I think it was 8.5 points a game has been the difference. So nothing too crazy for the most part. So highly competitive throughout. But obviously, before we jump into these playoffs, obviously we're going to have a big game coming pretty quick. I do believe our commission team our commission, one of our commissioners has pushed everything forward. So we go ahead and just look at yearly awards really quick. Obviously, we're going to have an MVP quarterback. No shock there with Patrick Mahomes and J Stack taking him to the Super Bowl. Kevin Freeman did get pretty close, a pretty close second there, but ultimately Patrick Mahomes does win the MVP, or at least most likely MVP. I'm pretty sure that's where we are, where the decision has been made. And you can see an Offensive Player of the Year for the AFC. I've seen Christian Watson come up several times in the chat for Ben and the way he was using Christian Watson with those Cleveland Browns. A few Chiefs players up there for the AFC. Defensive, you got a Chiefs player, Will Anderson right behind him. Rookie for the Chiefs, starting to line up. A defensive rookie by the Chiefs as far as the AFC. And then on the NFC side, just starting on the offensive player of the year, we do have Preston Gladstone. I am assuming this is the receiver on Nike's team with those Detroit Lions. Chris Olave for Preacher and those Saints coming in seconds with. Um, I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised this guy is not higher for Qua, but he is sitting in that third spot. Defensive rookie of a defensive player. Qua's got a guy up there, and Isaiah Stallbird, Eric Langford right behind him, and then two rookies, one for the Commanders for Swag, and on the defensive side, Langford for those Vikings. Again, as far as the best quarterback and all those things, I'll let you guys kind of go through all of those and kind of get your own perspective from there. We'll see how it looks by the time the advances happens. Going to the Pro Bowl picture, I'm not sure if Swag has pushed just yet, or if any of the admins have pushed just yet. But if they want, I can push it live. I'll just kind of wait to see what's communicated in the chat. Um, Great season this season. You know, a lot of people, some people started out hot and then didn't finish well, and then you had guys start slow, similar to CJ with the Giants, and then find his way into the Super Bowl or into the NFC Championship game. Um, it's been a very interesting kind of push, I would say, for the most part. But I did want to give a just a brief breakdown and just kind of go backwards into what this NFL playoff picture has been for the league. I did not put in a playoff bracket challenge for most. If you've been around long enough, if there's one thing you know about me is that I usually don't play a lot of the challenges. I have more interest in supporting them, more interest in getting them all set up, but I definitely don't have the interest, for the most part, in participating just because sometimes I feel like I know the league too well and there could be an advantage standpoint. I probably didn't know the league as well this year as I have in the past. But we are looking at this playoff picture. We're going to break down what we've seen happen in the league up to this point. Obviously, we just had a big game that just got played, and then one last night in the in the AFC as well that we have to discuss. But we're going to go start from these wild cards. We're going to work our way up to where we are now in league play. I'll be right back with you guys just shortly. Well, you've got to start with these wild card games because really, if you think about it, you could go all the way back to the very last week of the season. There was a lot of conversation, mainly in the NFC, about where people would land, where guys would end up based on that number one seed. My understanding was Hyundai was able to get the win over Preacher. Ultimately, that solidified him being in the number one seed. And then, of course, Quad getting the second seed there. You got J Stack getting the number one seed, going undefeated for the season, which there is something interesting about that I'm not going to mention until after we get these games played. Um, there is something interesting there on the other side of that about his position. And then, of course, the second seed, you did have Rome, excuse me, with those Ravens having a better season than the last season and probably the season before that. I'm not sure why it took Rome so long to kind of get in a groove with Baltimore, but he was able to do that. He was able to figure some things out, get into the playoffs, and be competitive. So I'm going to go straight over to. I'm going to start in the AFC, and the first game I'm going to actually start on is the Titans and Steelers. Obviously, you had Mark winning 38-24 in this game against Jacob. I thought this game was pretty. I thought it was pretty simple. Mark was pretty dominant in the very beginning of the game. Obviously, once the game started going on, Jacob started getting his footing with those Steelers, but ultimately having a second quarter where you give up 24 points right before half, it's going to be difficult to come back and win against anybody. And from what you can see in this game, neither user scored in the fourth, but ultimately he did have that uh, big second quarter in that game. Very even in the turnover margin, but he did obviously pull that game out. There was not a whole lot from a scheme base. I just thought that would hurt Jacob early in that game had more to do with just trying to figure out the defensive side of what Mark was doing. Um, because of the pressure that he was facing. But 38-24, Mark obviously pulled that one out. Going over to the NFC, I'll be very honest. I've already talked to Swag already. Um, didn't expect this result. Not shocked that CJ won the game. And you're going to hear me say this probably quite a bit as we go through these through both of these games or all these games. I'm not shocked that CJ won the game. I'm shocked at the result of the score in the game. Or I'm shocked in the result just because I was hoping that with this type of season Swag had, that there would be a little more conservative play in his game. Now, I'm not saying anything to y'all that I hadn't said to Swag already. Swag's not a conservative style user. That's just not how he plays offense. And ultimately, that was his downfall, in my opinion, in this game, was the super aggressive style against a guy like CJ that wants to lean on defense. In my opinion, CJ wants to lean on defense and possess the ball. Lean on defense and possess the ball. Get the hell out of there. So the score on this one was kind of shocking to me. Again, from looking at the playoffs up to this point, every game so far, there has been a second quarter that has been the difference as far as giving the guy losing in that game an opportunity to come back. And then, of course, if you look at the score, there were three back to back quarters that were pretty huge here. Obviously, CJ pulls this one. Going over um, I'm going over to the another AFC game between Steve and Ron and Ronk, or Ron C is what I call him with the Chargers. I did call out Ronk earlier in the season because I felt like he was just getting dragged when he first joined. And when I say dragged, he maybe win a game or two, but for the most part, I thought he'd be much more competitive than what he was at the time. And then, of course, he showed up. Whether he heard the show or not, from that point, he started winning, ultimately wins out to get into the playoffs. He runs into Steve, who started the season hot with those Patriots, was balling for the majority of the season. And this game just went back and forth. One of the things I feel like about a guy playing against Ronk with those Chargers is you don't want to play that back and forth game with the user of his caliber. I just feel like you get caught up in the possession to possession game or 5 minute quarters. Ultimately, what this game came down to was essentially he had the ball last. I mean, it was just that simple. He had the ball last. Um, Possession to possession. Ultimately, there's no time left for another opportunity for Steve to go up with those Patriots. Definitely had a good season with New England, but Ronk did take he did take this one with those Chargers. Over in the NFC, and man, let me tell you, the conversation starts getting really interesting for me, and especially when you look at the chat. Because I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. And Nike said it in the chat. He communicated it in the chat after his game. There were a lot of people that did not pick Nike to win this game against Preacher. I don't think I saw one list before the game started, or at least by halftime, that had Nike winning this game against Preacher. And what's funny is when you look at the results of the next game, the reason Preacher lost this game to me was very simple. He played Nike's game. That's it. Just that's it. I don't think, and again, this is just the opinion of one user in the league. Hell, I wouldn't even say I'm probably the best opinion, but nobody else is trying to do a show, so this is what the fuck you got. Um, he played Nike's game. He wanted to go and score to score with a user that loves to move the ball quick. I, I I just didn't think that was the best rhythm. Obviously, what Preacher wants to do is run the ball. He wants to move the ball. He's not one that wants to run the ball a whole lot. And I thought that was something that was going to be key, that was needed in this game against that team. And once he wasn't able to run the ball, then it just became pretty much a pace game. And that pace game, Nike, for the most part, just maintained it. He just maintained it for the majority of the game. There's a one difference turnover margin that happened in this game. But if you look at time of possession, Nike was running the ball and he was maintaining position in this game the entire time for the majority of this game. I felt like really neither user, for the most part, took advantage of the other user's mistakes because they both had mistakes in the game. But sitting there going score to score with the way Nike has built that team with Detroit and not playing enough, not having that more solid defense, making a guy kick field goals, I just thought it played in his favor. I mean, I went back and watched the game, and I saw it from the second half, just in the second quarter, and I thought this game is playing in the direction of how a user like Nike wants to play. Now, again, a lot of you don't know Nike from a history standpoint, or I'd say half of you don't. The other half does. Score to score, that is his favorite style of play. And I just thought this style of game that Preacher brought out, it just didn't favor him in the opportunity against Nike. I feel like if they played again, he'd probably be a little more trusting of the run, or at least put something out there a little more when it came to running the football, just to have a little bit more of a pace here to compete. But Nike did take that one. Going over to the back over to the AFC, you get Rome winning this game over Smitty. Now, I don't really care what Smitty says. He's always playing. Now, he's not always locked in. I would say he's not always locked in. He had zero interest in losing to Rome, in my opinion. Yeah, I already know what he would say in the chat. Like, man, I've been busy. Da 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 da. You've been busy since I know you, dog. You was not trying to lose to Rome, bro. Let's just keep it all the way buck. This was a good game though. Rome played a solid game. I saw Smitty do something in the fourth quarter that I feel like I haven't seen him do probably in 2 cycles. I saw him leave Rome an opportunity. Anybody that has played Smitty for the long term, one thing I can tell you about Smitty at the last 3 minutes or 2 minutes of a game, he's either trying to win the game or tie the game, but he is not giving you the ball back. That clock is officially running in the fourth quarter. I've never seen Smitty in a fourth quarter situation just give someone an opportunity. And that is legit what happened. That game should have 100% went to overtime, if that, if nothing less than that. So that was kind of shocking to me out of Smitty's gameplay against Rome. I'm not shocked that Rome won the game. To be fair with you, I'm not really shocked if anybody wins for the most part when it comes to the league across the board at this point. Because I've never thought Rome was a bad user. I've thought his offense can be stale. I've definitely thought that the old man's been running the same offense since Abraham Lincoln walked this earth. But other than that, I do think that was very different of Smitty. Usually, Smitty in that situation, he's not. He's killing the clock. He's killing the clock and putting you in a position where if you do something that is unnecessary, then ultimately he may get a pick and go down and then take the game. But that just a very different out of Smitty in that game. Rome played solid all the way through. He stuck to the same style of game play to ultimately win this football game against Smitty and those Dolphins. AFC, that is the wild card there. And going to the NFC, and I'm sorry, Qua, I'm so sorry I got to do this. I know you're on the admin team. I really hate to do this, brother. Before I say this, I just want to go back to something that we've talked about in the chat amongst each other. Everyone we've talked about this in some way. You either have to change the style of play that you play all season in the playoffs, like just some part of your game to win in the playoffs, or you go with what got you there. Now I know Qua's not going to agree with me. Probably a few other people are not going to agree with me. I thought the biggest mistake he made in this game was going completely away from the one thing that made him a problem all season. Literally watching the game. As soon as I saw it in the second quarter and I saw his rushing yards, I thought to myself, you haven't played this way all year. Yes, you can pass the football. No one's questioning that you have the ability to pass the football, but you haven't played this way all season where you've had to have a game where you're throwing for these type of yards. You during the season, I thought Qua was trusting his defense, even despite being in a position where he was down in a game. He leaned on Justin Fields, which obviously, from a stat standpoint, you would say Justin Fields did well. But ultimately, two turnovers in that game. And it's not like he got blown out. I mean, hell, he only lost by three. But in my opinion, if he has the run game in there, Kevin Freeman and Nike to me are the same person when it comes to style of play. If you want to live in a shootout with them, the chances of them winning goes up. I'd say about 80 if not 90% of the time. Just from a shootout standpoint, it's rare that Kevin Freeman loses shootouts. That is the game that they want to play. Now, obviously, Quad can play play in a shootout game and win. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm communicating is he had the most rushing yards this year and ended this game with a yard rushing. I was literally on a phone call when this game was happening. I'm not going to say who, but it was a user in the league, and I told him right then, if Quad doesn't run this football, I don't care what happens. He loses. He's been playing that way all year. For Kevin Freeman, again, it's a pace thing. I think paces matter. Everyone's different, but look at the time of possession, and when you look at how the scores were going in this game, total control for Kevin Freeman the whole time, and then you also look at time of possession. Do I think that that is the ultimate reason he lost? No. But I do think having zero balance in his game was the ultimate X factor that impacted him winning this game. You know, and again, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, brother Quad. I don't mean to put you out there like that, but my dog ran the ball one time in this game, like one time, and it was a damn problem all year running the ball. So, anyways, just my thoughts. That's how the wild card ended, and then we started getting to these divisional games, and all of a sudden it was styles make fights, team on team. I've played this user before. Everything starts to change. Kevin Freeman, he plays in a shootout against Qua. Well, that's not going to work against Hyundai. Hyundai is not a shootout guy. He doesn't play in games. If you look at it for the majority, where it's a shootout, it may be a high score, but I feel like if you understand what I mean by a shootout, then what I'm communicating is making sense. Like for example, if you watched the game that just happened tonight or just happened about 30 minutes ago, um, that's not a shootout to me. That's not a shootout type game to me. That was just going to possession by possession, but it wasn't just quick scores. Not everything's just happening real fast. But yeah, you go to the next game, and all of a sudden, the the style of game neutralizes what Kevin Freeman wants to do with those Vikings. Offensive rushing yards with Tampa, 91 yards, 242 passing, no picks. And then all of a sudden, because of the pace of play in the game, you start exposing or seeing the exposure of Kevin Freeman's style. Four turnovers in the game. Starts just throwing the ball up. Somebody had mentioned in the chat about him just throwing the ball up, giving his receivers a chance. Time of possession flips. Ultimately, Kevin Freeman loses that game and Hyundai advances. Going over to the AFC, you know, I'm gonna shout out Rome because again, I I feel like you got to give everybody respect when they get into the playoffs. The hardest part for Rome to me in this game against Mark had more to do with the fact that he just didn't score in the first half. Yeah, he played hell of a defense in this game. That was actually probably the best defense that anyone, yes, even though the Titans advanced, that was the best defense I've seen from somebody against Mark in the AFC. Rome just couldn't score. By the time he started scoring, it was too late. It was just that simple. And a lot of these games, when you if you watch them, it comes down to a user's style of offense versus the other user's defense. And I think sometimes when people are making these brackets, because there's some L's on that bracket that people are, I was looking at it and it was like, man, you're kind of dead wrong on who you think is going to win. But I thought with this game, Rome has got to be able to score. If Rome scores in this game, if he goes in the mindset of 28 points, he wins this round. Period. Mark did not play well in this game. He did not play well in this game, and not at least offensively. He did not play well offensively in this game, and ultimately just got out of there because of his defense held up, and Rome just simply didn't take advantage of what was happening. Getting to that styles makes fights. All of a sudden, you have Nike have the big game and in the wild card against the Saints, going score for score. This playing that style of game, and then all of a sudden you play against CJ with this balanced style gameplay, controlling the play, controlling the pace, trying to be sound in decision making, and everything changes for that offense with Detroit. And so that's why, for me, I feel like you got to take some of what you did in the regular season, but man, you got to have a little bit of something different in the playoffs. At least in the league right now. You know, I don't think there's one true user in the league that is just above anybody else. And the reason I say that is by scores. I mean, the Titans got in in the Super Bowl last season off of legit Hail Mary, like legit Hail Mary playing against the Jags last season. And so this game, I think what happened tonight was he took the same system against it took the same system against CJ and the Giants, and it just simply didn't work. This game, I thought he actually probably should have tried to throw the ball more. Um, he ran the ball, but just styles make fights. And if you watch this last game, that we'll get to at some point, you'll understand why I think the styles of these two users, why the outcome turned out the way it is. I don't think it's so much of just a domination thing as much as it is you played one style and won the game and not processing the next user and how you're going to have to adjust. And again, another game, second quarter. The second quarter has been the biggest quarter in every game. And there was the game that yesterday that went to double OT that'll communicate a little bit better to that. But CJ played well in this game. Balanced offense, no turnovers, controlled possession, and pretty much shut out Nike in the second half. Going over to J Stack and Ronk, this was almost J Stack's ass. I'm gonna just keep it a bean. I thought this game right here he was in trouble. I don't know what it is about Ronk and the way he plays offense, but the man does not go away. He does not go away. Big turnover in the first half. Right back, touchdown. Gets stopped, right back, touchdown. Stays in the game. And when you look at the balanced system that he had, he was balanced all the way through. J Stack is just locked in right now. I'll just call it what it is. Mr. Bailey is locked in right now. He is playing a style to get himself over the hump and ultimately get into the Super Bowl. He wins this one 38-35. I don't believe I'm missing a game in the divisional. And then going to the AFC and NFC championships, I'm proud of both sides, if I'm gonna be honest. I thought both sides had incredible games. Um, both sides had very different defensive styles. Both sides had very different offensive styles in how the AFC and NFC games went. Um, and then both sides had was very interesting from a turnover perspective. I'm gonna go ahead and go straight to this game because this was crazy. I felt like I was watching a second half of two users that were. It was almost like panic mode. No, no bullshit. Like playing confident, but struggling with decisions that you don't see them struggle with normally. I'm going to use Mark as an example. Mark did something in this game against J Stack that from the games that I have seen from the last two playoffs and even regular season games that let me know that there was either a concern in regards to his offense or his defense being able to get a stop. He had two fourth downs on fourth and threes, and he kicked a field goal. The first one, I understood. Obviously, you're going to half, right? You're or the first one I understood. No reason that we need to have no reason to make that decision because if you're going to get the ball back at some point, if you get a stop, obviously you keep the game into a solid position. I ain't never seen dude not go for it on a fourth and three in a tie ball game ever. And so that let me know that what was happening on the opposite side of the game for J Stack was the pressure he was putting from a scoring standpoint in the first half. You can look at the score. The third and fourth quarter, the first and second quarter of this game was legit. We're just going to go score for score, and whoever wins wins. and then everything changed. There was defensive adjustments made in the second half. There were they were thinking a lot deeper on decisions on how they made from the offensive side and trying to get the ball downfield, trying to be careful with the high risk decisions. I thought both users had very high risk turnovers that ultimately didn't impact them in the first in the within the first four quarters, and of course eventually going to overtime. The Both users had an opportunity in this game, specifically in the fourth quarter, where there was a turnover. Mark had an opportunity to win the game and take the game, didn't take it, gave the ball right back to J Stack, and then J Stack has an opportunity to win the game, doesn't take it, and then ultimately they get to a point. J Stack gets to the 4th and 1, and if anybody that was watching that game, when he was on that 4th and 1, or the 3rd and inches, 4th and 1 situation, down at the goal line to decide if he needs to go for it or if he needs to call a timeout and kick a field goal. I'm watching both streams. I had both streams up. I think the decision of the timeout to kick a field goal was crucial. But the play of the game, just in my opinion, everyone's going to see this different. It was the kick return from Daryl Ford. Why do I say that? At the end of the first half, Mark gets a touchdown. He scores with Dylan Sampson on a streak on the inside slot guy. He calls I think he called a five wide set. He has a Dylan Sampson in the slot. He throws that streak route. Obviously, you have J Stack playing him on the short ball because there's been so many slants and drags, and everybody. I feel like at this point, if you don't really have an idea of what Mark kind of wants to do, he's perfected it. Um, he hits that bomb to Dylan Sampson right before half to score, and then a kick return with 9 seconds left for J Sack to get to the point of, I think it was like a 58-yard field goal or something like that. He makes that field goal. That was actually the difference in the game. When you just look at the score, that was the difference. That if J Stack doesn't get that field goal before half, the way the fourth quarter played out, I think it completely changes his decision on that 3rd and inches, 4th and 1 situation. Because now you absolutely need a touchdown. And the reason that's so big is because if you were watching the game, and again, I had both streams up, I thought J Stack was probably going to go for a zig. And it was so interesting watching both of them live. Mark sets his hard flat in that corner. J Stack did the right thing, in my opinion, calls the timeout, takes the field goal. And the big thing was Mark only had, I think it was like 27 seconds on the clock. He gets obviously, J Stack gets the pick. They end up going to he gets the pick, returns it, plays it safe. They go to overtime. He scores. Mark gets to a 4th and 22. He puts a 22-yard in route. And I know there's people in the chat that were saying, "Oh, Cameron Ward threw a terrible throw." Well, if you went back and watched the replay, he had a defensive tackle about to hit him in his mouth, in the mouth, in the mouth. No pause. Cam Ward was about to get murdered. The hard part about that deep in route is the timing of it. And I think from a visual standpoint, if Mark went back and watched the play, he actually had that play open maybe a half second earlier before he threw it. But because it's so far down the field, and I don't know what the camera angle he plays on, he probably thinks it's not there just yet. And I think that was a difference in that play. That game probably could have continued down to the sudden death standpoint. I think playoffs, it goes. Everybody gets a chance to score, and it just kind of goes from there. Another game where I just thought Jay Stack was on fire, locked in, just locked in. Obviously, he's sitting with an undefeated season. And I get to say my favorite thing. We are not going to have a three-peat champion to start the league. Yeah, gosh, I have no idea how much I hate that shit. There's nothing I hate more than a three-peat champion. We not gonna have a four-peat. Y'all got me fucked up. I will die. That right there. I will call the best EA users of all time and put them in the league before we have a four-peat. It could happen. It ain't that big a deal. But hey, J Stack was locked in. This game went all the way down to overtime. Both users gave us a hell of a show watching that game last night, and obviously we're gonna have those Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And in this game, I I gotta tell you, both of these motherfuckers do a lot in a game. A lot. Heavy on man defense. There was like, let me say there's a heavy balance between zone and man defense between both of them in this game. Both I thought both were very trusting of the defensive calls they made. A lot of turnovers in this game. To me, thinking about CJ and Hyundai, there was a lot of turnovers in this game. They were going back and forth, back and forth. I'll be honest. When CJ made Hyundai punt in the first quarter on his first drive, goes down and scores, I thought, oh shit, Hyundai's in trouble. He's in trouble. Not because he's just playing catch up, but you just you don't want to put yourself in a position being down 7-0, especially with a guy with an offensive arsenal that he has with Jason Dart or Jackson Dart. Is it Jason Dart? Wait, either way, he's got Dart. Anyway, the way he's got that offense sitting with the Giants, I thought, oh man, being down 7-0 and missing out on your first possession, this could be tough. Comes right back. He gets a stop. Boom, goes down, scores. They went pretty much back and forth until about the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth. This game was literally who is going to overcome the turnover and win. I mean, hell, Hyundai had two. I don't know if that was one or two picks that I saw in that game, where one pick CJ had he got the pick, got down to Hyundai's 12-yard line, field goal. I'm thinking, oh, it's just 2014. He's still in the game, and sure enough, goes down and scores 21-20, and then boom, right back at you. Hyundai comes out, throws a nada pick. Not that next drive, but the one right after. And I'm thinking, how many times is he going to be able to overcome this? Is he going to be able to overcome this? And hell, CJ just didn't take advantage. He just simply didn't take advantage of the opportunities that he had with those turnovers. Hyundai did. I thought the two picks that CJ had late really hurt him. I would say that it was a forced throw. Obviously, I'm just giving an opinion. He may not felt like it was a forced throw, but I thought that was kind of a forced throw on one of his later picks, just because it was second down. I thought he had the running back open and the flats. He didn't take it. Um, Ends up throwing a pick that ultimately puts Hyundai in a position to pretty much seal the game. Hyundai had a bunch of shifts on the offensive side of the ball. Makes sense why CJ was running the man defensive style he did. Um, the man, trying to obviously trust in that defense. Um, Hyundai had an interesting run call with, I think it was a either HB blast or QB blast with a gadget running back that was pretty effective for him in this game. This game, in my opinion, could have went no different than the AFC. Could have went either way. Ultimately, the time of possession here, dead center. It just came down to turnovers. One user had more turnovers than the other. Ultimately, the user with the less turnovers won. Not a crazy difference in this game from a second quarter standpoint. This one came down to the beginning of the fourth. And again, CJ knows it. He had opportunities to win this game. He had opportunities, I thought, early to win this game or to put himself up in 2 or 3 possession scores if he just plays sound. And I got to give it to Hyundai. Dude's defense is solid. He did not let CJ get in rhythm offensively at all. I mean, like, at all. And so now we get to a Super Bowl. I got no idea who wins. You would almost have to go and look at both of these teams and look at matchups. I mean, that's. I feel like that's where you have to go to determine how things are going to pan out. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to give that away. I just realized I don't want to do that to either user. I ain't going to do that. Y'all got to do that y'all damn self. The game with CJ and Hyundai, the people I was in the chat with can tell me if I'm wrong. My opinion was it was Hyundai's defense against CJ's offense. When it came to J Stack and Mark, it came down to J Stack's locked in versus Mark's ability to literally be a fucking sweat until the game is over. How long could J Stack stay locked in offensively and make the defensive plays he needed against Mark and stay locked in the entire game? And now we get to a Super Bowl where still think it's the same story. I don't think that either user is going to struggle on the offensive side between Hyundai and J Stack. But I do think if I had to choose the biggest matchup between both games, both users, it's J Stack's offense again versus the defensive style that Hyundai plays. Hyundai had an interesting defensive calls that I was questioning in the beginning, but the shit worked. How do I question what's working? I'm on the sideline. What am I questioning this shit for? It's working. How does that balance? How is that going to impact 80 yards down the field against the style of offense that J Stack likes to play? J Stack's playing. He has been dotting on offense. Very patient offense. I don't think that the gimmicky stuff is going to get him defensively. I do think this season, from the most part, the way he is reading the defense, he watching that game with Mark, he had a lot of patience. The outside of the fourth quarter pick against Mark, which was still crazy to me. I don't know. I don't know what he saw when he threw that pass for that pick in the fourth quarter. But outside of that, he's been patient offensively, balanced offensively. Then you go over to Hyundai with the shifty. He's got a lot of motion in his offense. I do think that in some ways that was impacting CJ because then when you play a lot of man, when you have a lot of man defense against a guy that has a bunch of motion shifts on the offensive side, all I can say is your corners better be like that because if not, they're gonna get cooked. Just that simple. They're gonna get cooked. Um, I think this game is actually going to be about J Stack's defense against Hyundai's offense. They both are a perfect counter. They both are going to be a perfect. They equally counter each other. I didn't think in the last two Super Bowls that Mark played that the users that he played Not that they weren't good or competitive. I just thought from the style Mark plays, man, you better play every quarter, big dog. And usually, two turnovers against the style that Mark is playing right now, that's a L. From what I've seen, two turnovers is pretty much a L against the style that Mark plays. Their offense and defensive schemes against each other is going to be a very interesting style. I think both of them have some shifty plays on the offensive side. Both of them defensively have a D line. And that's going to be interesting as far as plays going down the field. I don't think this is going to be a high scoring game. It could be. I could be wrong. But I feel like this is going to be a 21-17 type game. I think whoever wins the Super Bowl ultimately is going to be turnover free. The turnover free guy wins the game. Period. And it's only because watching both users play in each game, one thing is for sure, at least for JSAC's side, turnovers weren't a thing for the most part. I thought the two turnovers Hyundai had against CJ, the first one, obviously, the defender just kind of gets in front of that slant. He kind of had a slant drag combo. I couldn't tell if that was a user pick or if that was just the the AI just getting in the way, ultimately getting the pick. The second one, CJ had probably one of the best lurks I've seen this season. I mean, if I was going to do a user lurk awards, I'm telling you right now, that pick that he got on Hyundai, where Hyundai had two slants coming across and being able to choose which one, how the hell he knew which one he was going to, and the way he guessed that was high quality user bait that I saw in that play. I don't know. I don't know who wins, and so I have my personal. Obviously I'm in the AFC, so you know what I want. I want the chip to stay where I live. You know what I mean? Keep it in the AFC, big dog. I don't know how this game is going to go, so I did think about maybe doing a prize based on votes. We'll see. I do think whoever wins this game is going to be have the not least amount of turnovers does not necessarily mean that you win a game. I mean, I know that's always the staple in the mindset, but we're playing a video game, dog. Like that doesn't always mean anything. Hell, I've I saw Oakman. I had a game against Oakman. If that wasn't this season, last season, I think that was this season. He had more turnovers than I did, and the man beat me with I think it was 70 fucking yard field goal or some shit, something crazy, crazy ass field goal. I'm super excited for the Super Bowl. Best of luck to both users. I'm gonna let the chat vote on who I want to see who wins. Ultimately, I just get to say my favorite phrase. We do not have a three-time champion. A three in a row, a dynasty did not occur. We did not let Mr. Mark and them damn Titans get three bowls. He's not the first user that would have been in a three bowl situation. Obviously, we've had plenty over time, but it's a nice feeling. I appreciate the efforts of everybody in the AFC. Hey Mark, we in Cancun right now. I don't know if you saw, but the cartel's going crazy in Mexico, so we may be coming back home pretty quick. But we just gonna find somewhere else to go, big dog. Congrats to you, obviously, for getting your first two Super Bowls. Congrats to both users now getting in for the Super Bowl this season. Best of luck to both of you. I think I'm gonna put a vote up for the league because I don't want to make a choice here. I don't want to. I mean, obviously, again, I'm an AFC guy, so I didn't really care who won between Hyundai or CJ. It's gonna be fucking FC for life type shit. Um, but I hope y'all have a good rest of the day, man. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.